As a filmmaker, it's our job to do two things. One, create visuals that complement the story that's being told. And two, lie to everyone. This looks like a nice early morning, but in reality, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and without lighting, this is what the space actually looks like. Today, I'm going to break down the lighting for this scene layer by layer, so you too can tell visual lies to your audience. Now, I have to preface this scene with one very important thing. That being, it's partly cloudy today, so as the sun moves in and out of cloud cover, it's going to dramatically change how our scene looks, whether or not we have natural light coming in through the windows or not. So I'm going to try my best to limit the fluctuations, as you can see, as much as possible as we start layering our light. So let's begin. So like I said, I want to go for early morning, and the window behind me is a little too cool. Right now the camera is set to 5600 Kelvin, and I think I'm going to keep it that way. But what I'm going to do to this window is I'm going to apply some CTS, or color temperature straw. I think it's actually quarter CTS. And that's just a gel that's going to go onto the window. So that's going to do two things. One, it's going to warm up the color temperature from behind me. It's kind of like an orangey yellow color. And two, it's going to reduce the light just a little bit that's coming through that window. Okay, so looking at the monitor, that gives me the warm glow I was kind of looking for. So now we're going to move on to the key light. Currently, I'm just being keyed by a window with natural light. So I'm going to close the blinds, possibly even flag it off with a negative fill or something like that. And then we'll work on the key light, which I'm thinking we're going to start with a cove, sort of like a cove light. If that doesn't work, then we'll try something else. So here's where we're at with the blinds and curtains closed on that window. And now let's move on to our cove light. Kind of cove light. You'll see. A cove light is a lighting technique that creates soft, even, and naturally wrapped light around your subject. It was made popular by the almighty cinematographer Roger Deakins. The idea is to bounce light off a curved or sloped surface, which helps diffuse the light and eliminates harsh shadows. It's a simple but incredibly effective way to enhance the soft quality of your light, and if you've never tried it before, I highly recommend it. So for this cove light, I started by taking 2 small light stands and used spring clamps to hold a large piece of fabric in place. Fun fact, the fabric I used is actually a large tablecloth. It's one of my favorite materials that I use personally for bouncing and diffusing light. Additionally, it has a slight yellow hue to it, which is perfect for this morning scene that we're shooting for. Next, I spread the light stands apart and draped the tablecloth on top of the table. The sloped shape of the fabric is what creates the cove effect. It also helps the light wrap softly around our subject's face, like I said before, which gives a nice natural look. The light fixture I used here was an Amaran 100XS with a reflector, and I aimed it into the end of the cove toward the center of the fabric. To avoid light from spilling onto the subject or onto the back wall, I walked the light in as close as possible to the cove. And with this simple setup, here's what our image looks like at this stage of the process. Hey filmmakers, I want to take a brief break from this video, and I hope you're enjoying it as much as I enjoyed creating it. First, I want to share a valuable resource with you, my personal filmmaking gear list. This is a list of the exact gear I use as a professional filmmaker. Additionally, this list is updated frequently as my gear changes, so you'll always have an up-to-date resource. You can grab it for free by clicking the link in the description. Second, I want to talk about something that could completely change your filmmaking career. If you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed by the steep learning curve, or feel like you're on the outside looking in because of all the gatekeeping in this industry, you're not alone. I've been there too, and that's exactly why I created Unlock Film Coaching Calls. This is a personalized mentorship designed specifically to help you fast-track your growth, build confidence, and overcome the challenges that are holding you back. So if you've ever wanted to grow as a filmmaker faster than you ever thought possible, have a professional to ask questions to, or finally take the steps toward making a full-time career out of filmmaking, these coaching calls are for you. Filmmaking is tough, but you don't have to do it alone. So click the link in the description and let's make your filmmaking dreams a reality. All right, let's get back to the video. Okay, so now we have a key light. So looking at the monitor, obviously it's splash light everywhere. So we're going to control that. The first thing I want to do is fix the background because we did lose it after we turned on our key. What I'm going to try to do first is open up the blinds, get a little more light in here, and we're going to bring down the intensity of the 100X. Okay, so here's where we're at after flagging off the 100X. So we flagged the top with a 4x floppy. We flagged the side with like a 3x3-ish black poster board. And then in the back, we also flagged it off with just some black like felt material that I have. That way we created almost like its own little softbox with a nice soft roll off that comes off the little cove that we have. In the previous shot, the 100X was at 100%, and I thought I'd have to bring it down quite a bit. But after doing the flags, I didn't have to change it at all. So it's still at full blast. So the next thing I'd like to do is work on our background, in particular, that one right there. I think I have an idea. I'm gonna use a mirror and try to bounce light into it off of a 300. We'll see what that looks like. I'm not quite sure if it will be enough. If it's not, then we'll try something else, but we'll try the mirror first. So for the background, I took a small 2x3 acrylic mirror and raised it up on a C-stand behind the cove light. All I had to do was use a Mathlini or Cardellini clamp to hold it in place and tilt it down toward the wall. Next, I set up an aperture 300D with barn doors and shot it straight into the mirror. Since the color temperature of the 300D is locked at 5600 Kelvin, I clamped a quarter CTS gel onto the barn doors to better match the rest of the scene. With that in place, here's what our image looks like so far. All right, so there's our background light. Now looking at the false color, it's a little hot, so I'll probably bring the intensity down probably 20% or so. But now we're going to move on to the fill side. It's a little too dark, so what I'm gonna do is add a little bit of a bounce. I think I'm gonna try a silver bounce in a 4x6. If that doesn't work, then I'll do a white ultra bounce. So here we go. Initially, I tried using the silver reflector on the 4x6, but it wasn't returning enough light, really any light at all. So I ended up going with an ultra bounce instead. I set up an aperture 300X with the reflector attached, positioned it down low, and fired it up into the bounce. For color temperature, I set the light to 4000 Kelvin to better match the rest of the scene. And as you can see, I started off with the light at 30%, but I ended up dialing it back to 10% to keep more contrast on my face. And that's our fill. All we needed was 10% into that ultra bounce just to raise the shadows a little more on my fill side. So the final thing I'd like to do is add a little bit of haze. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to continue to push that feeling of early morning. So the haze will lower the contrast and sort of give everything a nice dreamy look, if you will. Just add a little bit of atmosphere and some texture. As filmmakers, we craft visuals that complement the story and, yes, sometimes lie to our audience to create the illusion of a specific time, place, or mood. What started as a boring, unlit space in the middle of the afternoon was changed into a warm, early morning scene, all thanks to adding light in layers. Starting with warming up the window light with gels, to shaping the key light with a DIY cove, controlling light spill, and adding haze for atmosphere. Sometimes it's not about having the biggest budget or the best gear. It's about working with what you have to tell your story more effectively. As always, thank you so much for spending just a little bit of time with me today. And if you enjoyed this lighting breakdown, I think you'll also enjoy this one over here. So I'll see you over there.